without further ado.
Good.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I'm very glad to be here with you and share some about seeds are a fundamental part of life. Without seeds, life cannot continue. And seeds have always been there, and things happen by themselves. And it would happen that a bee or an insect would fly from one flower to another of the same type. Yeah? Not different, not from a sunflower to a dandelion, but from a carrot flower to another carrot flower. And when they do this, then pollination happens. Only then. If they fly to one that looks similar, but it's not the same, it doesn't happen. So there is the secret in nature that things just work together properly if they can come together. So one way is pollination by insect. Yeah. Another way would be actually the wind. Think of our grains. They're all pollinated by wind. And then yet there are some seeds that are pollinated, plants that are pollinated actually by themselves. A little boring. I have an example here. You know tomatoes, you've seen maybe tomato flowers?
Yes.
So this we found in the park where we went for a hike earlier on today. And this is actually tree tomato. And here you see the flower. And when you look in the flower, you see all this yellow. If you can scale back, then you would see the tomato, which is maybe more common than tree tomato. And then if you look carefully, you see the circle here of stamens. All these bodies that have pollen. And the pollen has to go to what's further in the pistil. It kind of pushes gradually through there. And in the moment when it pushes through and it slides by these pollen containers, pollination happens. Yeah. This is why we love tomatoes. They're very little work before pollination. They take care of themselves. You don't need to make sure you have insects there. It happens in any case. Mostly it's easy. If you have some heirloom varieties, some older varieties, where the breeders didn't pay attention to this, it may be that in the middle you see the pistil sticking out. And then insects can do the work too, and maybe not what you want. So this is how it works in nature, and pollination happens. And just think what it means that from different flowers, from different parts, or from different plants, it comes and gets united. Life can arise. And in a way, I would say proper grounding. That means if this happens on your farm, in your garden, that means somehow you're working with the resources at hand and that belong. And this is how it's supposed to be. If now, and this is how it worked for a long time. To breed a new variety, normally the farmer or the gardener would have to go and say, yeah, this color and this form, I will work with this further. I will select and carefully, maybe even by hand, pollinate, protect the flower, that it doesn't cross with something else. And then after a while, and then you continue for generations. I did a little bit of this work. And then after about 10 years, you have a new variety. And it took 10 years until everything is stable, until you don't have something else come of it. Call it throwbacks, sort of some of the parentage, but rather the new one. And then you've got a new variety. This is how it used to be. And so farmers and gardeners would just breed in part varieties that are best for the area. Things have changed in the last 50, a little more than 50, up to not 100 years yet, that hybrids were introduced. And hybrids were a very convenient way to ensure that what you get is nice and strong and uniform. You know, here in the store, you don't want 20 different kind of forms and then a very long harvest period. It's not so fun. So storekeepers normally want uniformity. And that the farmer can harvest it at once and bring it to the store. But normally in nature, it goes slower. And it doesn't go all at once. There's some early ones, there's some later ones, and gradually you get all the harvest. Or the farmers market or wet market doesn't matter so much. You know, but uniform, otherwise people like. So if you have an old variety that hasn't been well maintained, means people didn't pay enough attention to select. You plant and you see, that one isn't right. This one, no, form is wrong. Normally as a breeder or when you want to grow seeds, that the thing comes out nice and clean and properly. If this work is not being done, then a variety becomes. And this has happened with some who didn't pay attention or didn't pay enough attention. So some people said, we can help. We do a little bit more complicated process, and we take 2 different parents, sometimes even 3. That means one kind of, I'm speaking corn now, because this is how the work in the United States began with hybrid breeding. So you take this, alone is not good because it's too one-sided. Another one also has a good trait, but alone is not crop, it's not mixed. And a third one maybe even. And then you pollinate maybe for 2 generations, isolate. Most all of plants want others, they want to mix. They hate it, other than the tomato. They hate to be by themselves. And so you keep them separate. And then in the 3rd generation, 2nd or 3rd generation, you allow the bees or whatever to do the work. And now the next generation, you've got hybrid vigor, as they call it, extra strength, and very nice uniformity. Great, right? We want this. However, if I say, yeah, I love this corn, I'll take it home and I grow seeds. What happens next year? All over. All of it means they have all these different parent possibilities in various degrees, and a few are proper. But it may take you, then again, 10 years, sometimes even longer, to dehybridize. Done it with a tomato, it took maybe 15 generations. But there's always throwbacks. You think you have it, and then yet the wrong one comes up in there, and it's not a proper product. So the industry liked it. The grocers liked it, to sell the things. And you have enough, it all comes at once. You do your next plot, you have all of them there, you harvest them, you move on to the next one. Very nice. What does it mean for the grower? I'll never have anything that belongs, because I get something that was grown somewhere else. And now you have to think, where is right now the industry? How do they grow? Chemicals, with chemicals. So that means all seeds right now here in Malaysia, I would imagine, all seeds you can buy are all chemically, with chemical background. And that means they perform all right if you give chemical and if you give the herbicides, the pesticides, and so on. That means you're only getting seeds that you don't want, that are not really helpful for what you're doing. Because if you grow organically, biodynamically, you're looking for other traits. And so it makes it really difficult to have proper plants. Besides the fact that mostly there's fewer and fewer open pollinated seeds available. There are exceptions. For instance, lettuce, you don't use that much of it here, I guess, but no, still. is only, it's self-pollinating and it can't be hybridized. I haven't seen it yet. That means you could save lettuce and grow seeds. Sometimes there's a protection. In the United States, there was a protection, variety protection. If you have a very valuable variety and you feel it's good, you put it in a registry, you pay some money, and then people can only have your seed. You can't grow it commercially. You could grow a little and use, but you cannot sell it into others. So there are some things where this works, where you don't have to use it. Beans, generally speaking, also, they're not hybridized. But on the whole, a lot of the good varieties, when I started farming 40 years ago or more, there were a lot more open pollinated varieties. Open pollinated means not hybrid, just the normal way how the bees would do it. Or, and now most all of them, all the varieties, they have been replaced wherever you can by hybrids. And you know, here when you open a seed package, you see sort of this pinkish film on the seeds. That's the herbicide right away. No, the fungicide right away. Just to make sure that your seed comes up well and that you destroy your flora in the soil that may be important that you need, and it's destroyed this way. So it's a big problem. And when I began with seed saving, I quickly, and I had a CSA, community supported agriculture, and I would grow vegetables only on 1 acre. And I worked with apprentices, young people who learned from me. And so I had enough help, and maybe half of the seed after a while were farm produced. That's unusual. That's unusual. Mostly people can say, you know, this crop, this squash, this is just, they do so well with me. I should save seeds from them. And then you do this, and then you say, you know, I can do another few, maybe this, whatever it is, in which does well where I am, I will grow seeds, if you can, if it's open pollinated. And so then over time, you can grow, you can have enough seeds available. However, when you begin here, it will be difficult to get proper seeds. And that means in part, you may need to smuggle, bring seeds from abroad in countries where they don't have these restrictions. In the United States, there has been a movement to, it's called Seed Savers Exchange. All the people who have had good varieties where grandpa or grandma brought the seeds from Italy or from where, who knows where, and you've grown them over and over, and now they get shared with others. And so that's an organization where one can find good things, often maybe not good enough for the grower, for the commercial grower. However, there's material, and you say, this is nice, but it's not quite enough for commercial production. You can work with the seeds, and maybe after a few years, you have something useful. And so this is what people have been doing. And in the United States, we don't have restrictive laws. You can start a seed company without much trouble. In Germany, where I'm originally from, it's already more, the Germans are very thorough, very, you know, that has to be very accurate and very well documented in everything, description and so on. And so it's more difficult. If I wanted to introduce a new variety, I have to show the government or the agency that certifies that everything is fine. And that takes time. And then eventually they might say, okay, yes, good. And I have to prove that it's different from other existing varieties that are not just copying something, giving a new name or so. And so that way then things can be introduced. In Germany by now, they have one seed company that just specializes just on biodynamic seeds. And they have large amount of growers, not just in Germany alone, also some in maybe Italy, other countries around, and Netherlands, some even all the way from Egypt, they can. And so they have a good variety of seeds, very great variety. And this is helpful. And so there it started. This is important for you here. It started with some colleagues, some farmers saying, you know, I just don't like the seeds that I buy. They're not good enough. We could do better. And so they taught each other about seed saving and then seed breeding. And they were not university people, they were farmers. And they would just help each other to find the right varieties, and then did some breeding too, but open pollinated breeding, and get new variety, for instance, kohlrabi, which is sort of a nice thing. You may have it here, at least in China, you have it's like a cabbage that has then a thick stem, very fat, round stem that is used then for food or many things. So people say you cannot have open pollinated good seeds. You need to buy the hybrid. And they showed then that it's possible through good breeding that you can come to something just using open pollinated method by cross-pollination, and then working on for maybe 10 years or so. And so there's many different varieties, great varieties at Harald Hoven at a farm in Germany, where they do a lot of breeding and also just propagation of seeds. So it's wonderful what works there. And we have in the United States a smaller seed company, a biodynamic seed company, that is part of a therapeutic community, or actually of the Camp Hill movement, which is a movement that live in communities where you have farming and with special needs people. And in there, and some of the special needs people, they love to do kind of they have to pull out maybe something that's not quite right, and great work for them. And they love it to be very careful, and then with the tweezers, pull this out so that the seeds all come out well. So this one company, and then another where they do good work with seed saving, also breeding, not much yet. I did just a little bit of breeding. But then I visited Brazil, big country, right? Big country with a lot of possibilities. So then I asked her, how about seed? Do you have seed company? No, we can't do it. We're not allowed to. The pressure of the industry, of the chemical industry, is so great that they simply wouldn't allow them. So what did they do? The Biodynamic Association of Brazil started a seed bank. They did a lot of seed saving at their headquarters. And the director of the Biodynamic Association was also then a seed saver, don't know, breeding. So he would have enough there, and other people participated as well. And so they would always have enough seeds of important varieties. I don't know if the laws have changed. I was there 13 years ago, but that's what they did, at least to have some possibilities. And at the time when you could still find some good old variety, it's getting more difficult. When I began seed saving, or in earnest, and bought this book, which was way too expensive for me back then. What happened just then? In 1995, right? Yes. Suddenly there was something new on the market, and it was called a tomato. It was called the flavor saver, and it was a lie because it didn't have a good flavor. And it was a tomato that would never get soft. And they put in a fish gene to change it so that it could be nice and easy for the stores, but it was a real failure. However, we started seeing now there's a danger. Soon they will say, hybrids are not good enough. We need to use genetically engineered seed. And when there's enough of that, forget it, you use it. If we are not there in time to have something else, then things get really, really difficult. And so I became a serious seed saver. And in that year, 1995, suddenly in US and Canada together, there were then 3 biodynamic seed companies, tiny, but nevertheless, it began the work because we realized we had to do something to make sure to protect what we have, and that we could always say, you don't need this stuff. Look here, look what we have. It works. And so I dedicated in my work as a farmer, growing vegetables, but also seeing what went well in my place and easily being able to do some seed saving, but also breeding on the side. So I became then a major supplier of seeds of turtle tree seed. Should you bring the catalog? No. From turtle tree? No. Anyway, you couldn't get the seeds from there anyway. So I could have seeds. So I grew seeds for my needs, but I could also have surplus. And for me, it was additionally a little bit more income. And it was, no, I had to do it for myself anyway, and then to grow seeds also for others. It spread my reach for my work. It's interesting. When I went to town, oh, you were from Raphael Garden. Oh, great. But then when I traveled, oh, you introduced the canasta lettuce somewhere else in the country because people could buy it in other places. So I felt as a grower, you have your pride. And it was nice then to share what I had with other areas as well. So I think it's a great idea what you plan to do here to help growers to look at what could they do and what is still, what can we find, open pollinated seeds that are really good, and then work with it over time that it may become even better so that you can grow things that are appreciated. I should talk a little more about the system in Germany. They have been breeding, and they were lucky because there are some supporters of biodynamics that say, your Biodynamic Seed Breeders Association, we fund a certain amount. It goes in the millions. There's a software, company where the former owner sold it, had enough money and then well invested. And so he could give every year a certain amount to the seed breeders and to the Goetheanum in Switzerland and to other good causes to allow good work to happen. And so in part, this work was funded, the breeding work was funded from this foundation, but then also the storekeeper said, we need to work with our customers more. They need to know what it takes to get good seeds here for you. And when you buy, you should pay maybe a few, what's your unit here? I don't know, a few pennies or whatever, each time when you buy seeds. Maybe a bread, that's used with certain grain that was bread, or when you buy carrots, a little bit of money goes back to the breeding. And this is a good method also of education, where people say, I don't mind paying a little extra, because this is for a real good cause, and I know the future will have something, and I'm happy to help with this. So I think you can definitely, if you're careful, if you have also very solid customers, and you have a product where they see, wow, now that carrot is different. You have to work on this too. You can't do that right away. That people would say, yes, I've never had. And then if they learn about hybrids too, with hybrids you can get sweet carrots, but they're not, you can't grow them again. So one has to educate, and of course you have to have enough people who will dare to do this. And I must say, and I know there are many growers who would say, nah, sorry, I'm not going to do open pollinated. I know it's just not good enough. I always buy hybrids because I know I've got strong vigor, uniformity, And that's what the store wants. So they have to have enough stores that would say it's okay if it's a little bit less uniform or whatever. And we just say this is also work in progress. It is for the future. And do education, say the government doesn't allow us to do it, or whatever that is. I don't know what your regulations are. But to say we have to do this, there's no public money. If your government says, hey, cool, organic seeds, yes, we give you grants, good. But maybe not. I don't know if this will happen. Yeah. And so that's why you may need to just find other ways too. And if the stores can encourage the growers to do at least maybe one crop and see then, start with that, find something open pollinated and save the seeds. And that gradually you get more. And it's good to start with the yummy thing. You know, if you get something that people say, wow, or I taste the difference. I want to come back a little more also to this groundedness. I talked about it in the beginning. The seeds are grounded. You have the feeling they belong. They're right. There are certain industries where people want this. Wine. In the wine industry, it's all about, they call it terroir. This is when you drink this wine, say, oh, this must be Sauvignon or some area, you know, in this place where the flavor of the earth comes through. We don't have the same thing with milk, where you say, oh, this is Hawthorne Valley Farm or whatever, you know, but you have to realize too that of course every area has the particular flavor. And also whatever is closest to you would be your best place for your food, or what is close by, not too far away. So it is good if what you have has a nice flavor, and but also that you can promote this farmer, that the farmers are able to grow their own seeds again, or that they can do something which otherwise they can't. So it's extremely important for the future. And you must find a way, and both with professional growers, but also with gardeners as well, to do this. And there are different requirements. For instance, if I want to grow lettuce, it's good if I have maybe to start off with at least 20 plants of one variety, and not another variety close by. If it's over there, the bookshelf is not a problem. You have other things in between, because they're self-pollinators, it shouldn't be a problem. And so then in my 20 plants, I do now selection. And I see, nah, color isn't quite correct here. Or this is super early. It means it falls too quickly. You know, with the lettuce, you want to make sure they're nice heads. And when they push and they open up and then they want to flower, too late. And you don't want normally them to do this too early. So maybe I select out and I take this early variety out and have it for dinner, and keep the other ones that are a little slower until they're ready. And then they gradually start, they grow up. Then you see little in the morning, a little flower, a little yellow flower, and a little one over here, and a little one there. And then you come in the afternoon, they're all closed. It means they had flowered, but they are finished. They're waiting now. And the next morning you have others, and it goes on for weeks. And now a month later, a little more, then it just looks like here the dandelion flower that I was given, or the seed that forms. And you have these white little puffs there on top. And then you go and you just hold a bucket next to it, and you tip on the plant, and the seeds fall down. And you just rub the seeds, and you have very simple. And there are other things that are more complicated. For instance, if I wanted to grow corn, sweet corn. Then I need to have a lot more plants. I need to have maybe 200 plants or more. Because corn likes to be in touch with other plants. In one corn plant is not all the genetic information present, only part of the different traits of it. And so you always have to have a mixing with everything else to have something good. Yeah, 200 plants. You can't do that in your backyard, not well. Yeah. And then also if a neighbor has it close by, it doesn't work. Brassicas, the cabbage family. Think of what you call, give me a Chinese name, or what? Yeah, all of those. Yeah. Right, all of those. And of course, a lot of those, now just think of the field of it, most of them are the same species, and they were crossed. Honsai Thai, Totsai, Bok Choy, and all of this, they were all crossed. Mustard. Yes. Now, well, some mustard are different. Yeah. And so you need to know, oh, what species is it? They all are Brassica, Oleracea, Rapa, Naples, they're different kinds. So you need to learn. You need to learn. And when you buy seeds, you need to know, oh, what is it? And maybe you have to call the seed company and ask, is this a Rapa or Naples or what? And okay, and then you grow them and you make sure there's no other. And now you have to have maybe 70 plants or so to start, 60, 70. And then again, you see something in there that doesn't look right. And then at the end, you should have at least 50. That takes more space. And it goes for certain things where you need very little. Yeah, arugula, I don't know if you have that here at all. You do? No, right. But something that's maybe just a main stem and not a big one, sort of something smaller, then you can still do. But so it takes more space. And you need to make sure that nothing else starts flowering of the same species. So one has to be careful, and you have to learn. The beauty actually for the grower is that something that you only know when it's the most beautiful, head off and it goes to the market and that's it. And you never learn, you never know the whole plant. You never know what it takes to go all the way to seed. For me, as a vegetable grower, that was a great joy when I began to appreciate the plants all the way. And the next thing is that in a way, when you have grown it, and you see now, you've grown the seeds, and you plant the seeds, and you plant next to it another variety that you had not grown the seeds of, and you see yours is strong, it's fast, it's strong. Then once you haven't, after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it slows down a little bit. And then you need to make sure that in time you replant the seeds, because otherwise you have lost it. There comes a time when the germination is too low. That means you don't have to grow seed every year. It depends, but normally I could, with my lettuce, at the latest in 4 years, I had to replant them, and otherwise I would have lost. And they had a lettuce variety that I kept for maybe 15 generations. Can you imagine? 15 years where I had harvested seed, kept them, cleaned them, made sure they wouldn't cross next time, and then kept them going. And I had maybe 15 varieties at least of lettuce because it's easy. And I would have maybe then Brassica oleracea, I would have a kohlrabi, I would have a cabbage, I would have kale, so different things that I could grow. And every year I would do something a little different. You can have quite a few things after a while. But it takes work and it takes dedication, and but it can be really, really helpful. So I feel also, particularly now, if I speak for the biodynamic movement, we are supposed to develop the farm as an organism that supports itself from within. Rudolf Steiner called it even an individuality. It's totally individualized. The seeds would be individualized to your place, not to the farm in, I don't know, China or somewhere, or some far off country, but rather it comes right from there. And it responds just to the situation you're in, the climate that you have, the soil type that you have, the fertility that you use, the kind of compost that you use. So all this would be perfect. And so as biodynamic growers, we should do this. We should do this. At least we should grow some of them that we can. And so for the health of the biodynamic movement in particular, because at least we care for this, it will be important to work further on this issue. But I hope that it can grow in other ways. Maybe I'll just stop here and open for questions, comments. Could you all understand, first of all?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So luckily, yeah. I have one like
Yeah.
idea, like so if in my garden I have some plants
Mhm.
that is from the birds, and then it grows, and this is the fruits and the veggie is very good. So if I want to save the seed, so did I do the same kind of procedure like you mentioned, or I just let it stay there and open pollinated again?
Okay, yes. So so now you need to know then other things. I mentioned it a little bit that with the lettuce, if I have 10 plants to save seeds of, can be enough. Principally, you could say the more you have, the better, because your gene pool is larger. And if you save each year one plant only, 5, 6 years or so, suddenly they say, no, and you would see decline. And so one plant alone, not enough. And so when I mentioned the 50 for the brassica, for the cabbage family, you could maybe do one time 10, but then next year you have 50, or next generation you have 50 or so. So you have to know that a little bit. You need to study some, and maybe this would be a good starter book here, Seed to Seed. I'm actually from the woman lives in my hometown, Suzanne Ashworth. And then you would learn some about the characteristic of particular types. So because we have these 3 different types too, insect pollinated, and they are normally a little bit more tricky, the insect pollinated, but they may keep longer too, possibly. So in there, for instance, are your squashes, your cucumbers, melons, squash, and so on, all of those, one group. And the other one would be the carrot family, carrots, and that includes fennel, includes celery, parsley, cilantro, and a lot of other things. And then again with beautiful flowering. Yeah. Do you know what you call cilantro?
Yes.
Yeah, coriander. Right. And so let your coriander flower. See what happens. Insects. They attract all the insects. So it's good also to let this happen for the insect, for your environment. But if they fly too far and you have a neighbor and with a different type, or say maybe something different, basil. You know, there's so many basil variety, and you love the variety, and now your neighbor has a different one, and you have the bees happily flying. It doesn't work. So you need to know a little bit the danger. However, you can start. And you can start, and then if it doesn't work, you say, well, what did I do wrong? Let me look here. Yeah? Yes. So yes, you can do, but I wouldn't always just do with everything, but you have to know also the minimum. So we say minimum population. And then we have isolation. Otherwise, say, how far from my lettuce over there is okay. But then other things, it may be a lot more, and wind pollinated, the wind can go a long ways. And it depends if you have a barrier somewhere in between, a forest in between that and another field or so. There's a lot of factors which you will learn to work with after time. But it's definitely also a wonderful thing just to start even in your backyard, definitely, or balcony. Tomato, you can start with one plant. You go to the market and you find, excuse me, is this a hybrid or what? If they know, you can just take a seed from it, and then you squeeze it out and you let it ferment a little bit. And then after about 2 days, this gelatinous sac, that's around the tomato seed, it breaks down. And then the seeds will start descending down to the bottom of your, if you squeeze out and get a whole bunch of them. And then it's time to sift them, clean them, put them on some cardboard, maybe in a room with ventilation. And then after a few days, well, I would wait 2 weeks maybe, then they're ready. You can store them, and so it's really easy then. Yes. Other question? Yes.
I'm very interested in your sharing about lettuce, because I'm also have experience
Yes.
to keep my own lettuce.
Yes.
The name is cost lettuce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So of course, sometimes it's a question. Sometimes you can get very cheap seed, but then also it's too cheap. Yeah, you may get it cheap and it's just not worth it. But for fine varieties that would maybe cost a little more, and then also you can eat very quickly have enough seed.
Yeah.
And say to your friends, this is a
Yeah.
very good variety. And so in my work, I always look for things that were special. So for instance, with lettuce, I would see one that does very well in the heat in Sacramento and in California, where it's really hot in the summer. And so one that falls very late, the head stays together before it starts flowering. So I would work with this. And I did this also for 15 generations or so. And then it becomes ever better. And yeah, you can then eventually share with others, and then maybe they can give you something else that you don't have. So for different part of the year, I have some for the summer, some for the winter, for spring and fall, some open, some head lettuce, and so on. Variety. Yes, you can do that with lettuce, very easy. Tomato, also very easy. If you make sure you have open pollinated varieties. Yeah. But then when they bloom, you have to look too. If they are like this or not so open as it is now, but tightly together, then you're safe. But if you see they're too open, they say, they're not faithful. They go play around, That's not good.
How about carrot?
Carrots is more complex. Well, it depends. Do carrots grow well here?
I'm in Thailand.
Island to bed, island.
Okay. Let's go better. Good. Also, higher elevation, probably better. We have to be careful with carrots because of a wild carrot.
Wow, carrot.
Yes, and it goes many places just along the road. And if you don't have it, good.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
have.
We don't have-
good. And the carrots though, it's biennial. So there are vegetables like the fruiting vegetables, they're all annuals. But then some are biennials, they will only flower in the second year. So for the carrots, what I would do then, to have a nice variety, or I think I like this, and I want to save seeds. I harvest, and then I go through them and say, this has the proper form. Yeah? So I take all those that are the proper form out. And then next step is that I cut off a little bit. No, I cut the top off. I just leave a little bit. And then I cut the bottom off. And then I eat this. And if the taste is good, then I know, okay. And they will reroot, they will make more roots again. And then for a while, I keep them in sand. Just put them in sand until I have large enough population. And then I replant them. So I do this at the end of the year, and I don't know how things work here because summer and winter,
Totally different.
right? You have to find out.
Okay.
And sometimes certain things don't want to go to seed even. Sometimes they are guided by cooler temperature, short days, and when the days are getting longer again. You will have to find out. Sometimes, of course, you can fool the plant by giving in the greenhouse less light or whatever. But it's a little bit more complicated. So you could try. And similarly, the brassicas, they're also, the rapa is mostly annual, can be annual, but the oleracea, which is cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, and broccoli, they are, generally speaking, biennials. It takes a little longer. Yes.
You talk about now we go to the digital part for my side. So you mentioned about we need to work with customers and then to create an awareness of the seeds with us. Right? Do you mind to share with us some challenges you face when you talk with them? Because like over here, people don't even bother to look at the plant itself. So now we're talking about seed. So which is a very rare topic which has been discussed among the public. So how can we actually tell them the importance of seed of that?
Of course, it's difficult. And if you are lucky and you have a farm close to the city, and you invite people also to come shop at the farm, which is again, Dockberg is a beautiful farm in Germany where they have with a big farm store now, and the people go there and they go shopping, and then they can go out and the kids can see the pigs and the different things and so on. And it makes it attractive. This makes it easier, but you could have pictures. You could have in the display next to it, you have a picture of the flowering crop as an example. And then you can say this took 5 years or however long to breed this variety. And people did it on the side. They have to be farmers and they didn't get any money for 10 years getting the variety ready. As a CSA farmer, I could still give my shareholder maybe the tomatoes, the tomatoes that were not fully bred variety because they would get mixed colors or whatever. But it can be difficult. Yeah. So you have to try and maybe have a little description. Yeah. And of course, if you have samples sometimes, can do it too. If it really tastes real well, and then say it has a story. This is what we're talking in America about often now, is people want to know the story. Yeah. And if they feel, yeah, this came, this way to us, and then people just worked and they saw what it did, and then that finally here we have it. Yeah, so this helps people want to be involved. This is also the maybe why people like to be part of the CSA. They get their vegetables and then they get a newsletter and they hear, well, this crop didn't work out and this one's so good this year. And so the story that goes along with things definitely helps.
Any pushback like from the industry so far? Because like over here, you have some seed issue, especially on the policy side. So people doesn't understand about that, and the industry is actually like saying that if you're going to that
if you don't make big advertisement, you keep it quiet. And there's no mean people coming in the store. It should work. I think the more they experience it as a threat, then something happens. This is the very reason why in the very beginning, when biodynamic agriculture was introduced 98 years ago, the farmers were asked not to speak about it because the industry that was just getting strong, the chemical industry, they wanted to have all the business, and they did not want to have competition. And so they had to be quiet about it. And but then let the customers taste. And so after biodynamic was introduced, 3 years later, they had Demeter. 3 years later, they started forming Demeter as the trademark, because they knew, well, we have a different quality, we have greater costs. And so, and people who really want good food, they need to find it. So this is how they did it. So I was happy to see Demeter products here in the store. Yes, so there shouldn't be. It's only if you say, well, we sell open pollinated seeds, and you're loud about it. In the beginning, make it simple, and then later find people with influence who have tasted it and say this needs to go out. Yeah, so you have to work then also with people with influence. Once you've got something good.
Know about saving, the difference of saving and breeding. Saving is the key of reliability, and breeding is
Okay.
breeding.
Okay, good. Yes, I can say a little bit about this. The trouble is if you save seed and you save everything, you don't go and say, no, you don't belong here. And so you just let everything go to seed. This is so then it can get messy. So even for a seed saver, should always be a little careful. You don't want to have all the traits that show up. You have to make sure, is the stem supposed to be, or the carrot, is it supposed to be tapered or blunt, for instance? And I remember when I did my first carrot seed saving, I saw variety, and I saw so many tapered ones, and I thought, oh, it's tapered. And then later I read, no, it's blunt. And it saved already seed because there was too much, it was already messed up. Yeah, of course I can say then I like it and I keep breeding for tapered of this type. So you can always do later what you want, but you have to look at it. And so even the seed saver can become a breeder. And you see, you have to realize too, right now people have worry, changing climate, maybe greater temperatures and so on. And that means we will be in trouble if you have a variety of seeds and they've been in the seed bank, maybe in Norway, you know, there's the seed, big seed bank or whatever, by Bill Gates. Then if they take the seed out 30 years later, the seed is still good, but everything has changed. So as a seed grower, the more often you grow seed, if you keep it constantly, you allow the seed to acclimate with the weather or go along with the changes in the climate. So that is important, and therefore it's good to grow often enough. So there is on the one hand just maintaining or maybe doing little things, and then there is really full breeding. So my breeding was primarily well, in part by mistakes. I was saving seeds of a very nice squash, zucchini. Very nice, but not very productive. And so I would be careful. I would do it a way I could show you. You go to individual flowers and you go, and before the flower is ready to open, you close it. You keep it. You close it in the evening before the next morning when it would open by itself. In the next morning, you go. You take all this off. And now with this one, this is the one that has the stem, that has the pollen. You go to another flower, which you also close. You see, this is the so-called female flower that makes the fruit, and this is the one that has the long stem only for pollen. And then you go, oh no, it goes the wrong, goes the order. So I go, I take this off, carefully, quickly before the honeybee comes. I play God, pollination, and then I close it again. No, wait, no, actually, take it off, do the pollination here, and then I put something around that it is tight, and then I mark it. Put a marker on it so I know, oh, this is different from the others. I did the pollination. This is guaranteed. The rest can be harvested young. You know, zucchinis you want to harvest young. This stays on and until it's fat and hard, and then I save the seed. So I did this with this one variety, and then later there was something yellow in there. And I never had luck with yellow zucchinis. Okay, now I had something with little hair. Now I started selecting. But then I thought, oh, this variety is very delicious, called Romanesco Costata. But it was just not productive enough. Then I took another green one, productive green one, and crossed with this as well. And then did that for 10 years, worked with that, and then I had a nice one, which is called Raphael's Gold. My garden was Raphael Garden, so I called it Raphael's Gold. And it's still, after a while, after you harvest and they're nice and gold, yellow gold. But then maybe after 3 months, 2-3 months harvest, there are some green ones coming up. Anyway, this is an example of some work. And so I did something else. Well, tomato, I tried to dehybridize sun gold cherry, which is a very delicious one. And it took endlessly. And then I did something else where where a wrong plant, I had gotten seed for a variety that had lost. And there was one thing in there that didn't belong. I said, okay, I put separate. And so I kept saving seed. And this became then an oak leaf variety that I could grow summer and winter. So I called it then year-round bronze oak. But it came out of a mistake in a certain way, or I had not done any just crossing. There are other people, breeders, maybe with training, they take very different plants, and I would not do that. I think even selecting is a good thing, and maybe changing a little bit. Yes.
And I have a special experience about growing tomato, because it's some species we cannot keep the seed. So I try to use the small plant inside the big plant.
Okay.
So I put it and it grow very well.
Yes.
So the color is back to the color what I want.
Yes. Yes. Now this is interesting too, just to realize not everything really happens by seed, by way of seed. Banana, sugarcane. Yeah.
Lemon. Lemon.
Yeah, oh, that's grafting then. Yeah, right. But some plants don't give you seed any longer. And so then it's different. But you have to, there's something special though about seeds, if you can have seeds, because you have to realize when you grow seeds, there are truly new possibilities. Otherwise, it's just clones, always clones. But then if there's any trouble, that can be disastrous. 1850 or so, roughly, in Ireland, they were growing just potatoes. And they were all the same because there was a good variety and they were all the same parent. Almost everyone had it. And suddenly in 1 year, there was a blight, a bad disease. And I don't know how much of the Irish population died, or they had to flee, to go elsewhere because they were relying on something that it was all the same. And when you have seeds, you have different possibilities. Some may be bad, but so in a way, that things can remain seed can be very helpful. Yeah. But of course, it's good to do this, be able
Just
to.
try.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Not all seeds can be seed.
Hmm?
There are because
Thank you.
see that
Yes, this is your greatest challenge. So of course, your climate is ideal for fungus, for breakdown. You have a lot in nature, a lot of also rotting quickly, easily. And so the seeds have to be protected and much easier in a cold climate, cooler climate, where you may not even have to put them into a special place. What if you want to keep the seeds for longer, you may need to, first of all, you would not put them, if they're not entirely dry, in a tight container. Yeah. So if you have them in paper, there's some breathing. Restricted, but it's possible. But if it's very humid, that means then your seed, maybe lettuce seed would keep for 2 years instead of 4. Yeah, or so. So there could be ways of using desiccant, the things that you have in the little bags and whatever, and food sometimes to get the moisture, pull the moisture out. And sometimes it's silica gel. And silica gel, and sometimes they have them with different color. When it's blue, it means it's working, it pulls the moisture. When they turn pink, it means they're saturated with moisture. You can put those in the oven and wait until they turn blue again. So you have the little kernels, the little silica gel. So that's one thing that could be done. But it's more tricky. Definitely, it's an extra step where you have to pay more attention. But some seeds also last a lot longer, like squash. It could be 10 years. And maybe you still get, you have to see, you'll see when you notice you get too little germination, then you make note of it and you just work more carefully, or you maybe save some of them, store some of them in tight containers after they had a desiccant. Yeah, I didn't have to deal with that in California, where it's dry in the summer and in winter then they're in the building and they're protected. Yeah, we get rain in the winter only. Yeah. Yeah.
So what container we use the suitable to keep the seed container?
Yeah, so I would do normally seed bag just out of paper or like envelopes, but not plastic because it doesn't breathe, and not glass type, unless you have them really dry and you know for sure, then you could do it. I didn't do much in the fridge or so.
normal room temperature.
Hmm?
But keep it a fridge or
Yeah, when you do them in the fridge, also then the cold warm, they acclimate, or when you or if you had them even in the freezer in a bag, you take them out and you take them immediately out, there's condensation on them, and that's not good. So if you have them in the freezer, you have to wait a while, maybe a few hours or whatever before you take them out of the bag. But I found it didn't really help much. I did it in the beginning, but stopped doing it. At least for my climate, I didn't gain much. But you will have to find out. That means, and you have to do maybe hear what other people have done. And also when you do it, that you share. So, what you're trying to do is in a certain way also community building and exchanging, that you have kind of a community of seed savers, and that you share with you. So I just did this and look what happened, or great crop and so on. And that helps them to builds community, but also knowledge. And then maybe after 5 years, you write a great book about it. But not sooner, not after 1 year, or maybe after 10 years. But share at least, you can share, but don't write a book.
A question from the
Okay,
Eric asked, is it possible to retain seeds that you viable even after decay? And is there any technique to keep for decay?
Yeah, well, the decay happens. So first of all, every seed has only a certain lifespan. Every seed, and this used to be different. They used to be much more longer viable, and this has gone back. So the reason that we have biodynamics today is that farmers were telling Rostan, look, we used to keep our seed for 10, 20 years, and we would grow them no problem. And now, after 5 years, it doesn't work any longer. And so it's true, it's a big difference between conventional seeds and their storage ability and organic, and then more with biodynamic. Biodynamic has the best seed storage, the longest seed storage. So I remember reading about onion. You could keep them for maybe 1, 2 years, the seeds. And my seeds, they would still sell them after 10 years at the seed company. So you have to know just how long they keep, and you have to regrow them in time. So you have to find out how long it takes in the beginning, maybe do yearly or other year or just something to find out then how well they do, how long they keep. But once they're too old, finished. That's the interesting thing. It's like you can't make mistakes. Then it's like you become a parent. You don't want to mess. You don't want to. Your kids are very valuable, and you have to be careful that everything goes all right. So it's in a way you become parents, and they become family. The seeds become family. So I wish you good luck. More questions? Oh, good.
So, CS is asking, if the seeds gotten from local area, does that mean that a farmer from far away, like 50, 100 km, should not get the seeds?
Okay, good. So the ideal, normally in nature too, just imagine there's a tree and it flowers, it has a fruit. Fruit falls to the ground and the new plant grows right there. This is how things happen in nature, except for the bird that takes it and carries it and brings it further. And it's okay. It's not super far. And so in nature, generally speaking, you have ecosystems and things are within an ecosystem. And that's healthy. And when Rudolf Steiner introduced biodynamic agriculture, he told the farmers they should try to have this organism where things they get individualized. That means where you have the fence in this area that protects against wild animals, whatever, you create something that's unique. And where the fertility comes, is cycled from there, and where the feed that comes from there is fed to the animals and then gives milk or whatever transformed so that everything becomes well, turns well. However, you can't do this forever. Say you have your bull and your cow. And you shouldn't just do forever just with your bull and your cow. You need to go and say, hey, I've got good bull. My female stays. She belongs to the land. The female line belongs to the land. But my bull or my rooster or whatever, I take to the neighbor and I get one from there, a little further away. So you want to have a little bit of change, but also at the same time, you try to build something that works. Knowing that you can get seeds that come from far, far away means they can be changed over time. You can take something that comes from the other side of the world. If they grow well with you, that means they like it here. And that means you have conditions that are good for them. Those are the seeds you want to grow. Yeah. If something doesn't want to grow with you, even if it's good, it's hard. It's hard to force it. You may sometimes say, I try 1 year, maybe next year will be better after it's been with me for one generation, but not always. So no, it's okay. When you start with seeds, that's what I said before, whatever does well with you, that's what you should grow, because that does you have the conditions for it. Yeah. So that's what you look for. Any more?
That's all from me.
Okay. You think you have something to start with?
Yeah.
By the way, I would come back maybe another time and then help also do something on the ground. But it's very important. It's a very important theme, and right now also new laws, and you have to know that too. You probably, I don't know if your genetically engineered food is marked that you can find in the supermarket or that you can say no. In the US, not in Europe, it is. But also they say something, it's not really genetically engineered, and so they don't get the stamps. There's no new forms of genetic engineering that are not so visible, but still they are. It is a violation of the plant, and it should be marked, and they're trying to sneak around it. And also even hybrids, there are already some that are still called hybrids, but they are really almost genetically engineered. So one has to be careful, and with some crops more than other. I'm sorry, I had hoped I would have brought an article about some type of hybrids, but I didn't have that with me. Good luck and exchange with others, ideas too with others. And maybe talk with the Germans to introduce these things to their stores, and who did that campaign, kind of, the more people, the more you have a faithful custom base, the more you can do this. People say, this is the best thing. There's no other place in town where I can get food like this. Then after a while, you can do things. So good luck.
Thank you.
Now you want to put closing remarks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because-
Should we invite like someone to share about, what is your purpose for today? Maybe some purpose.
Yeah, interesting, because I'm try a few times to harvest my own seed, but sometimes because my location is too moisture, so my seed become like so now I'm starting try some new way. I bring my seed come down to the low level. So make it dry, take back.
Right, yes, so also you can, of course, it's in part a matter of irrigation. For instance, if you are, for us in the summer, we need irrigation because it's all dry. So if you grow your seeds that they mature in the dry season, then you may be safer. And then when you go to move into the house, put it somewhere up where the fan, you have your fan going all the time. That means mostly the air there is drier. And then maybe close the door or whatever when it is extra moist, or you have to maybe just do with one room where you are particularly careful. This may help.
Well, my clothes also cannot get dry everywhere.
Right.
It is very difficult in Cayman Island. Too
area is
Buy a clothes.
too dry.
So every day I use dryer to make my clothes dry.
Right.
So I cannot put seed inside and make it dry. So I find a little bit difficult.
Yeah, no, but you learn over time.
Because our place season is only raining season every day.
I think maybe it's a year end more people.
Yeah, no, every day.
You are in higher elevation
Yeah.
and you have rainy season every day of the year.
Yeah, it will raining very often. especially these 3 years. Almost, I can say, now only raining season. So a bit difficult for us,
Right,
now, especially
right.
Sea level 5,000.
by 1,500 meters.
That's fine.
So moisture, my moisture meter every day morning is around 90%. The moisture.
Maybe you should grow some biden with preparation plants.
Yeah.
Because you want enough
Yeah,
high
yeah, yeah.
elevations.
I find out that quite suitable.
They come from Europe.
Yeah.
I'd like to better well, right?
Singing letter was successful.
Singing letter, the photo.
Good, very good. Other sharing, other.
I grew durian. The practice that I do are completely different than what you mentioned. Because actually we can't grow by seed. Because actually the moment we grow by seed, durian tree will take about 7 years before they start bearing fruit. And ordinary human life, it doesn't so many 7 to 10 years. We only can try if this generation is not good. The next generation, and we don't have any more resources for me to try again. This is where we always go for grafting. Okay, the only
Grafting, you do grafting.
yeah, the one
Yeah,
that
yeah. Yeah.
and this is where we can actually preserve the quality of the food.
Yes.
Okay, of course there was still
Yeah.
the bee was still making their job easy, and end up it gets mixed around. But
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Maturity, I guess the quality more or less are the same.
Right. Yes.
I guess as the growth we continue.
Right. Yes, I think there, yeah, you have to know too what's realistic. And you know, when Rostana introduced, when he talked to the farmers, he said, don't get fanatic. Because it doesn't help. It doesn't help to just be too, I need to do it this way. And you see where you can create this self-supporting system, but not with everything. Yeah, but also if you can do the grafting and get the other, maybe even the wild ones, you can put those in well, then it still comes from there. Maybe over time you can graft in your own farm. Yeah, good, thank you.
To me, saving, for even reading, to say about doing first saving, that will be done later. Even myself, I go by that actually, but until now, I just be able to take a little bit of seed, especially with vertical, because they are so tiny, it can take quite a long time. Yeah. Even myself, like, yeah, I know I'm a biodynamic farmer. Saving is a big part, but up to a certain time, because of the baby routine and all those, sometimes it still takes a lot of willpower, strong willpower to kickstart the thing. So, in my opinion, there's a lot to be done. Not to say me myself, but I'm a farmer, especially a biodynamic farmer. But I'm also a little bit lazy, save it sometimes. So not to say others, especially the conventional farmer. So, in my opinion, there are a lot to be done.
So, very good, and I think it's also, we have to be honest and also see where do we need to work on most. And in the beginning, first you need to make sure you can grow the crop. And that you feel, yes, I mastered this. And I can get it harvest just at the right time. And so that brings satisfaction. And then once you have it and say, yeah, it's all easy. Then you say, okay, now I'll do the next thing. Yeah. And then it's different. So then you have already, you can do one thing and it almost gets boring. And maybe you want a new challenge. And so that's this, yeah, I understand.
I'm a home gardener.
You are what?
Home gardener.
Okay, yes.
All right. because I have limited space to grow lately, so what I did usually is that I will grow and then those beans with the seeds right matured, I just give away. I never come across to actually grow it now until second, third, until 10 years. I never come across to see it done. So I think I would just give away rather than actually keeping for my own. So
This is good part. Yeah, you can do both. And also then once you learn a little more, say like with beans, it's also simple. They're also self-pollinated mostly. And so you can easily, if you only have one variety and not a neighbor directly around, you can save seeds, not directly. So you save seeds and then you see. And then if it's good, it's okay. If there was a bumblebee or something, maybe you have some crossing, but it's okay. It's nice. But with beans, my experience, once they're dry, you have to put them in the freezer for 10 days. If you don't do it, there's a weevil in there, little thing, and then your beans become holy. The holes are in the beans. And so, yes, but actually, it's easy. Yeah. And this is an example of where it's very easy.
when majority of the tomatoes in Malaysia are grown hydroponic. So when I harvest, keep the thing from those tomatoes, then plant it onto the seed. It doesn't work well.
It doesn't. You've tried it?
Many times.
Yeah. And the tomatoes, were they hybrids though, or?
Only hybrid and hydroponic.
And so the bad thing is in the United States, they even now have organic hydroponic. It's a joke. It's a joke. And so the lobby, the hydroponic lobby, just worked around it and sneaked it in, and nobody, all the farmers said, don't do it. The farmer who were on the board of the certificate, said, don't allow this. And anyway, yeah, it's very sad. Okay, any more comments?
Like, if I just want questions, like you mentioned about open pollination,
Right.
but if I don't choose that it's the right one, I just keep it open and more generation. Would in another way that would it be better and stronger in such manner?
Well, you let it happen, then it's just basically nature, if you will. But now if you keep adding compost to the area, then over time it changes. And so it changes, and so the seeds will change with it. And yeah, so it's okay, you can just let it happen, but also you can maybe at some point there's a desire that you can make sure that it goes in a certain direction and not in another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a bit lost.
Yeah.
Between actually mixing the breed would be a better idea or the mix?
So it can be good to have mixing,
Okay.
but of course you need to know that everything is all right. If you have a problem and that mixes, then you may be in bigger trouble.
Is that something that actually we can just like actually I think a mixed breed usually better. But occasionally in terms of better doesn't mean that it's better for human as well in terms of taste, in terms of sizes.
Yeah. So better can also mean location.
Okay.
For your location, it's good, but from your location. So, but I don't do durian. Well, I tell you, I'm not an expert. See what you need to do for keeping them healthy. So better. There's many things that are not just normal or rather natural. And so we have done something that we can retrieve what we wanted to have but it's not natural. So, yeah, I cannot say. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I think I remember recently once mentioned to us during the pandemic period that he wasn't able to get seats because of the lockdown, and then we have a shortage in vegetables. So during that we were thinking that, what if one day we don't have seats, then we won't have food, and we won't have vegetables to supply and to sell in our stores. So I think as a retailer perspective, we are more than happy and willing to work with farmers that are willing to do seed saving, and we can be part of the education to educating our consumers that the importance of breeding and also saving your own seed. So it's worth it. So thank you so much, Aaron, for sharing.
Great pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for organizing this.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
On
Oh, yeah, a little bit of review.